And I have one more piece to do. We're diving into ballot initiatives. So I'm going to dive into that and then we'll be heading out of here, folks. So one of the things that I try to tell people to do is to organize locally and to see what you can do locally in reference to politics, right? So I covered the ballot initiative results for 2022, and we are now covering, there's 9 ballot initiative results for 2023. So we're diving into Colorado. So let's go to Colorado here. Because I think if more people get organized around like ballot initiatives, I think we can make more changes. I mean, I know it's worked well for those of us here in Massachusetts. Colorado. Citizens of Colorado may initiate legislation as either a state statute or constitutional amendment through the process of direct initiative. Now, this means that once initiatives qualify to go onto the ballot, they bypass the Colorado legislature and go directly on the ballot for voters to vote on to pass as a law or ratify as an amendment into the Colorado Constitution. In Colorado, citizens also have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum. So it's one of the easier states to pass a ballot initiative because you don't have to go through the legislature. Once you already have it, you have the direct initiative. There's a lot of states that are not direct initiatives, so they still need to go through the legislature, but it goes directly onto the ballot. If you live in Colorado, get some BIs done. There is a single subject rule. In Colorado, each proposed measure must address only one subject. Unlike other states, Colorado's single subject rule is closely tied to a measure's ballot title. If an approved measure encompasses some subject not clearly expressed in its title, only the expressed portion of the law is void. If a measure is too broad to be assigned a title that addresses only one subject, the measure cannot be placed on the ballot. However, if rejected, proponents may revise the measure. Deadlines are not extended to accommodate these revisions. Colorado does not restrict the subject matter of initiated measures. In addition, initiatives are not required to specify a funding source for mandated expenditures. Sorry. Okay, let's jump down here. Number required. In Colorado, the number of signatures required for a successful petition is 5. Be they constitutional amendments, statutes, and referendums, percentage of the total number of votes cast for the office of Colorado State Secretary of State in the preceding general election. This is the part I think a lot of people need to hear. Distribution requirement. None for initiated state statutes. For an initiated constitutional amendment, this requires signatures from 2% of the registered voters from each of the state's 35 Senate districts, based on the Senate district boundaries and the number of registered voters at the time the initiative petition is approved for circulation. So that's important, 2%. There's a note here. It is never a good idea to do distribution requirements based on legislative districts due to the fact that districts get redrawn, not to mention specifying exact number of districts to get signatures from. Mostly due to the fact that you can lose a legislative district to a population loss because of interstate migration, thus suspending the petition drive process. Seeing it's calling for, in this case, 35 state Senate districts, but if they lose a district, making it 34, yet their constitution says 35. Now the petition drive process that needs to be corrected by the legislature. This is exactly what happened in Mississippi when their constitution specified getting signatures from all 5 congressional districts, but due to interstate migration, they were down to 4. It is better to either replace numbers with the word all, like instead of saying 35 Senate districts, you just say all Senate districts or a number described in percentage than in decimal, like 50% of all Senate districts. This is also the reason why Mississippi is no longer one of the BI states, because that's Roger's note, what he's saying there, that's really important to note. When you actually mention a number, and if you lose a district or a district is redrawn, well, then you could lose that possibility that you have there for those initiatives. So that's important why you don't use a number, right? Let's go in here. We just want to jump down to effective date. Within 30 days of canvass of votes, the governor of Colorado will issue an official declaration of the results. All approved measures take effect on the day of proclamation. Congressional ballot initiatives go into effect the day the governor makes a proclamation. If I were them, I would push the CBI amendment saying these amendments and laws go into effect either once the votes are certified or January 1st of the following year, not when some elected official says it goes into effect. So like for Massachusetts, for example, with some of our measures, it actually says to go into effect on such and such January 20th, 2024. It actually stated a date. But when you have to wait on the governor, supermajority requirements, 55% supermajority vote for constitutional amendments, be they CBIs or initiated by the legislature. Exceptions for amendments written to do nothing but remove language from the Constitution, for which a simple majority is still required for approval. Here's a note. They already have a distribution requirement. Why not make it harder by going more than a simple majority? I say do one or the other, or make it hard on the back end to make it easier on the front end, or make it easy on the back end, making it harder on the front, because not easy on both or hard on both like this one does. Okay, so for 2023, Colorado had this measure, Colorado Proposition 2, Tobacco and Nicotine Product Tax Revenue Measure. It says a yes vote allows the state to keep revenue that exceeds official projections from increased taxes on cigarettes, tobacco, and nicotine products, which voters approved as Proposition EE in 2020, and requires the state to spend this revenue on preschool programs. This measure was ratified by 67.53%. Again, this is from 2023. Let me go down here. It says, what does the measure do? The ballot measure asks voters whether the state can keep or utilize excess revenue generated from increased and new tobacco, cigarette, and nicotine taxes approved by the voters in 2020. Now, it goes on to say here, Proposition EE was expected to generate $176 million in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, the first full year that the measure was effective. Actual revenues generated exceeded the projected amount by about $24 million. This 2023 measure being proposed would provide additional revenue, which amounts to $23.65 million. This would be allocated to the state's universal preschool program, which is the current primary recipient of Proposition EE funds. The tax rates established in Proposition EE would remain unchanged. If the ballot measure is rejected, the state would be required to refund the $23.65 million in excess revenue to tobacco and nicotine product distributors and wholesalers. If the measure is rejected, the tax rates on tobacco, cigarettes, and nicotine products under Proposition EE would be reduced by a total of 11.53%. Who supported this measure? Mainly Democrats. Look at this. This is important, guys. This is funny. Look who supported this. State Senator Rhonda Fields, Dominique Marino, Julie McCluskey, and State Representative Emily Sirota. Yes, I can guess who that is. That would be David Sirota's wife, right? So journalist David Sirota, that's his wife. All right. Now, here's one of the arguments that support it. It says here, Proposition 2 maintains tax rates that voters already approved in Proposition EE by a 2/3 majority. The measure ensures that money collected from these voter-approved taxes can be used for its intended purpose, supporting preschool programs rather than creating refunds for distributors or cigarettes, tobacco products, and nicotine products. Higher tax rates also deter smoking, tobacco, and nicotine use, which may reduce negative health impacts. And 2, the measure helps provide free preschool for Colorado families, particularly those with high need, including low-income families and families with at-risk children, to name a few there. So, how much money was spent to support this ballot measure? It says over $241,000 was spent to support it. There was no money spent to oppose it. So typically the way this works, usually whichever one has the most money is usually the way the wind blows. So you notice there's over $200,000 to support it. It passed. And you can see here, it says preschool for all Coloradians. And then it has like the cash contribution there, which we just went over that amount. In reference to donors, you can see Healthier Colorado, Save the Children Action Network, and Gary Advocacy LLC. And one of the things that Roger noted here, why only for preschool? What about K through 12? That's a good point there. Colorado is a test ground state. I don't know if I explained this to people before. For those of you new, I feel like when it comes to ballot measures, I feel like Colorado just seems to be the state to go first. Just like when we talk about the legalization of marijuana, I feel like Colorado just like, let us try it out and see if it works here, folks. And then if it works okay there, then it seems to go along, to other states, right? Other states tend to try it. Okay, and then I think we have 2. Yeah, but I have reached my time. We'll get to the other Colorado measure on Tuesday evening when I come back, and that one is the property tax change measure. So that one definitely did fail. Colorado, this is question 2 for Colorado. Colorado Proposition HH, property tax changes and revenue change measure. A yes vote supports making various changes to state property taxes and revenue limits, including reducing property tax rates, allowing the state to retain and spend revenues that it would otherwise be required to refund to residents under Colorado's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, creating a new increased cap on state revenue, allowing the state to retain and spend additional revenue each year up to the Proposition HH cap, allocating revenue to local governments to make up for deceased property tax revenues, creating a limit on local government property tax revenue. This measure failed, epic fail, by 59.33%. So this one did not pass. It says here, Tabor limits the amount of money the state of Colorado can take in and spend. It limits the annual increase for some state revenue to inflation plus the percentage change in state population. Any money collected above this limit is refunded to taxpayers unless the voters allow the state to spend it. Who supported this measure? Governor Jared Polis, who's a Democrat, and State Senator Stephen Finberg. Political parties were the Democratic Party of Colorado, organizations, Bell Policy Center. One of the arguments from Jared Polis was because of the very strong economy and very strong Tabor surplus, we are able to do both. We are able not to jeopardize or cut funding for our schools and important property tax relief today. Provide important property tax relief today. Interesting. So Colorado had one that passed and they had this one that failed. Who opposed it? The Republican Party of Denver, the state senator Barbara Kirkmeyer, organizations, Advanced Colorado Institute, and individuals, Republican president of Advanced Colorado Institute. And then I also want to show you how much money was spent for this measure. There was over $810,000 spent to support this ballot measure. And there was also over $1 million spent to oppose it. And this measure did not pass. So that is Colorado, ladies and gentlemen.